Hello and welcome to this exclusive talk for ETCIO and ETCISO TV in the run-up to Spectrum Sri Lanka edition, which is going to be held on February 18, in which thousands of top tech leaders from the country would participate. My name is Mukbil Ahmed. I'm the executive editor at ETCIO. Let me add some context to this conversation. Today, organizations are digitizing at a breakneck speed, doing this to maintain business continuity, timelines, and productivity due to the uncertainty around us. However, this surely cannot happen at the cost of security, since increased digital interaction can increase risks. In fact, cyber attacks and security incidents have increased dramatically over the pandemic period. In fact, a lot of experts say that the year 2022 is the one when cybersecurity lapses will cost the most. And financial and reputational risks can be huge for enterprises. According to estimates, companies already lose close to $400 billion to hackers per year. On the other hand, we also see that with the kicking in of stringent data privacy regulatory laws, non-compliance can cost companies millions of dollars if they don't abide by the regulations. Therefore, we see that the cost of data breaches has gone up exponentially. Moreover, with the coming in of a mobile and agile workforce, particularly with remote working in place and continuous work from home mandates, the cyber attack surface has also expanded and added many vulnerabilities for hackers to exploit. Now, to discuss all this, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Madu Ratnayake, co-founder and chairman Scybers and ex-CIO Virtusa. Welcome to the show, Madu.
Hey, great to be here, Mukbil. Thanks for inviting me.
I hope you are doing well and keeping safe and healthy.
All good. Thank you so much.
Great. Now, without much ado, let me dive straight into the conversation. So, Madhu, we see that the focus of digital transformation and the pace of digitalization has really increased, particularly over this pandemic period. And this is a huge, huge shift. How do you view this digital transformation?
Yeah, Mukbil, I think if you really look at the digital transformation, which has been happening around the world for many years, if not for the last decade, very especially, I think, it is an exponential curve, right? And we are really seeing, we are turning that the high exponent turning point, right? So if you really think about, just take a step back and think about what is driving that, right? The computing power. If you think about the things like Moore's law has been going on for the last 20, 30 years, like clockwork. Every 18 to 24 months, what computers can do double in capability, right? That's essentially the Moore's law, and without missing a beat, it's been going on for years, and I think it'll continue to grow. With that, I think we've come to that point of exponential curve turning. Yeah, we see that with some of the tremendous new technologies that's coming right now, right? Things like Web 3.0, AR, VR, and metaverse, creating a completely different immersive experience, digital and physical world. Then you have things like NFT and blockchain creating new ways of digital ownership and transaction and trust. You see AI and robotics completely coming into a new level of fusion and creating massive capabilities for organizations, right? And this coupled with a connectivity like 5G, which is rapidly connecting the world, and the cloud computing really brings a platform for any companies to adapt technology very rapidly, right? That's why I think we are seeing this curve is turning, right? And all this confluence of these technologies coming in at a very affordable, very accessible levels, creating this massive digital transformation shift. As you said, obviously the COVID has given a real huge kick in the turn. Things would have otherwise taken 8 to 10 years. COVID has accelerated us to 1 to 2 years, right? So this whole shift and turning of the curve and COVID coming together has created this whole paradigm, right? And the accelerated digital transformation. I think if you remember the saying that every company is a software company, which was said by Forbes, I think many years ago, it's so true today, and more true today than ever, that every company has to embrace this and become a technology or digital company. I think that's what the transformation is, and it's very is here to stay. And I think it's about how we embrace that and how do you take advantage of that as organizations to redefine themselves or to reimagine businesses. So it's a very exciting time to be in technology right now.
Very exciting time, pertinent points coming from Madu. And as you rightly pointed out, with the coming of the latest cutting edge and emerging technologies coupled with connectivity, it really really gives the digital agenda a huge push. Now, so in this whole scenario, what do you think are the main challenges that confront organizations?
Great question, Mukbil. I think a few things. I think there are many, and I think it's very unique to different organizations. But if I try to kind of distill out to what I feel some of the challenges from what I have seen in the past, number one, I think, is a culture, right? To really build a great digital transformation journey to transform your organization, you really need to have a strong culture that supports that. Culture either will support it or will inhibit it, right? And unfortunately, most companies over time build cultures that doesn't lend very well to rapid change and rapid acceleration, right? So culture is one of the biggest challenges for companies that I have seen struggling to do this. And the number two, I think, is talent. Having the right talent. We are going through this whole big quit or great resignation. Many people are really moving away from organizations which are not purpose driven, or regardless of the organization, people are thinking, hey, I need a break, right? So talent has becoming an increasing challenge. At the same time, it's an opportunity as well, because with remote work and work from home, the whole world has opened up. So now companies can think beyond the geographical boundaries and start attracting talent globally. So it's both a threat and opportunity, I think. The third one is cybersecurity. I think a lot of companies, we are putting a lot of things on digital, and not having a proper security strategy and protection around your digital assets and organization can wipe you out overnight, right? So and really impact the trust that the customers or consumers have on you, right? So that's the third point that I would say are challenging for organizations to address.
Culture and skills, of course, are very essential, for organizations wanting to digitize, and particularly coming to the third point that you mentioned, cybersecurity. So, do you think that this rapid digitalization has actually led to an exponential increase in digital risks and expanded the surface area and the attack surface?
Absolutely, Mukbil. I think attack surface definitely has increased exponentially, and remote work obviously had added to that. Hitherto what companies who protected their boundaries and then protected things inside the company, right? That whole model of castle and moat security has overnight disappeared, right? Now you need to think more about zero trust, where you have instead of a security around the perimeter, you have to have a security around every asset, and think about security more from an exchange perspective, right? So I think this dramatically has changed. The threat landscape has significantly increased, and so is the cyber risks.
So Madhu, what does the threat landscape really look like today?
So some of the numbers that I've been looking at, there was a very interesting MasterCard number that was published a while ago, at the kind of midpoint of pandemic so far. They said there's about 600% increase in cyber attacks in there, right? And I think you can see that happening with a lot of the news and headlines that we have started hearing more and more, and you see the tip of that iceberg, right? But there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of the threat actors have gotten very sophisticated. There's a lot of tooling out there. In fact, there are things like ransomware as a service. There are companies who offer ransomware as a service for other companies to use, right? So it's come to a completely new level. It's become a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So there's a lot of work going on there, right? And I think that's really worrying, right? As companies go more digital and trying to put things out there and embrace a more digital world, your threats increasing on the other side. So it's a bit of a perfect storm.
Absolutely. So you very rightly pointed out that digital risks have really expanded, and incidents have also increased exponentially. Actually, 600% is a huge number. Now, these are the very reasons why enterprises, they really worry about the safety of their applications and data. And I'm particularly talking about those sectors which deal in a lot of sensitive information and face strict compliances, regulations. For example, the banking and financial sector or the healthcare sector. So all those enterprises in those domains, they really worry about the safety of their data. Now, from your own view as a technology expert, do you really think that this is true, and particularly in the context of a technology like cloud?
See really that change happening simply because software, as we know, are not perfect, right? Most of the time it's not designed, security is not designed in for most organizations. It's not a practice yet, right? We don't have the right tooling to identify. The recent great example is the recent worldwide issue around Log4j, that we discovered how much penetration these kind of open source technologies have around the technologies that we use, and how a simple vulnerability can completely keep you exposed, right? So I think it's dramatically changing, right? And I think we have to have the right tooling, right approaches, right strategies to be able to build things which are secure by design, right? That's the only way I think we can have at least some semblance in being able to respond to this, right? You have to do this by design as opposed to doing some things and then trying to protect it.
Right. I absolutely agree with you that security by design is an essential component, and security as an afterthought is a real challenge that confronts many organizations. Now, what are the other challenges that you think that organizations really face while trying to put up a really robust security posture?
Yeah, I think a couple of things again come back to number one thing is about lack of clarity, right? I think to really understand what are you trying to protect, understanding this as a business issue, business risk is number one, right? I think at the starting from the very top of the organization, you must have a clarity around what are you trying to achieve, what are we trying to protect, and how are you going to do this. So that's very crucial, right? You can't start any attempt at trying to protect your digital assets unless you have clarity around what are your crown jewels, what are the risk of losing them, and what is the investment that you need to make, right? So that's number one. Number two, as I said earlier, which applies here as well, is a talent, right? I think cybersecurity talent is shortage is acute around the world. Even if you really have clarity and know what you want to do, finding the right people to do that is becoming increasingly hard. And so that's a big challenge for a lot of organizations. And the third thing is having that alignment. You may have the people, you may have the leadership, but if they don't have the right level of alignment to execute something like this, because this is an enterprise-wide issue, right? This is not an issue that a CISO in a corner or IT guy in a corner can solve, right? It's an enterprise-wide business level issue. So the alignment is very key to have that, and companies generally struggle with that till you get a level of maturity and understanding to have that alignment to make it a business issue and a broad-based business issue. So those are three things I would say: the clarity, talent, and alignment are three things we should look at very seriously to address this, improve your cyber resilience.
So we have discussed, really in depth what are the digital risks, how it is getting increased exponentially, and all of that. Now, in all this situation, what is your recommendation? I mean, what should the executives, cybersecurity professionals, the boards, and the other stakeholders really do to stay ahead of the digital risks that they face?
Yeah, great question. You're absolutely right. It is a board matter and a senior executive matter, right? So, few thoughts too. First thing is you have to make sure you are stay above the waterline. You protect your organization from being a target of opportunity, right? A lot of cyber attacks going on are not really targeted at you. They are really exploiting open doors, and if somebody's left the door open, they will go in, right? So you need to make sure that firstly, you have a good hygiene, your patching, your basic cyber controls are in place and they're working well, so you don't become the target of opportunity, right? So that's number one. Then you have to really balance your investment in protection and really responding to issue. You have to assume breach, right? Whether you like it or not, you're going to get breach at some point. And so if you assume breach, how do you really make your company resilient? How, do you take the right backups? Do you encrypt your data? So even if it's a attack happens, that the damage is minimized, right? And then you can really get back on your feet and go, right? Most companies don't spend enough on assume breach. They get on to protection, but they don't assume breach and say, okay, how do I build resilience in the face of an attack? How do we do that? The third thing I think you need to do is when an attack happens, how do you reduce the blast radius, right? How do you make sure you very quickly identify and detect it and contain it, right? So you have your proper detection mechanisms and response mechanism and rehearse that over and over. So when something happens, you don't run around trying to figure out what to do. You can quickly respond, right? So those are, from a strategic and approach perspective, I would say those are the three things: to protect adequately, assume breach and be ready for a compromise, and build capabilities to detect and respond quickly. And to do that, you have to do a few things. You have to firstly have champion cyber in your organization as a business leader, right? Make sure that you take this as a business issue, take it as a board level conversation, and set that tone so that people take it seriously. Secondly, you give your CISO or your cybersecurity leader a seat at the table, right? Make sure that you hear from these leaders and bring them into the business conversation. It's not a sidebar conversation, it's the real conversation around the board, and give them a seat at the table. Obviously, the cyber leaders also have to step up and make sure that they have a business conversation around these things, right? And thirdly, focus on risk and focus on the threats, and really keep a very grounded view about it, right? Because that's changing every day. And so what you as a leader inspect, and if you're really looking at your threat landscape on a very regular basis, that creates the framework and execution downstream to be able to protect. So those are few things I think the boards and executives should be looking at to ensure that you have a fairly decent risk mitigation strategy around this significant risk around cyber.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more with you, Madhu, on this. That resilience, building capacity, will really be the cornerstones for organizations wanting to really, put up a very robust security posture and be able to spot cyber attacks and data breaches and ensure the security and safety of their data and applications. Now, with this, we come to the end of this extremely insightful chat, and it has been a wonderful opportunity connecting with you, Madhu, and a pleasure talking to you. And I hope the audience also has had a lot of insights and takeaways of particularly, of an expert from Sri Lanka, one who is highly revered all over. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Madhu.